Madame Tussauds staff visited Twickenham Studios while preparing new wax figures of the Beatles. They brought a selection of glass eyes so each figure could be matched to the real musician. During a break in filming A Hard Day's Night, George Harrison held 2 samples over his own eyes, turning a routine museum fitting into this wonderfully strange scene. In September 1969, John Lennon assembled the first Plastic Ono band for a festival in Toronto with Eric Clapton, Klaus Voormann, and Alan White. The 4 musicians had never played together as a group, so their only rehearsal happened on the flight from London. Lennon and Clapton ran through songs on guitars, while White practiced by drumming on the airline seat in front of him. At the end of November 1987, Guns N' Roses were opening for Motley Crue in Florida. Photographer Mark Weiss asked the band to pose after the show. When he returned backstage, Axl Rose was still wearing only a towel and boots. The finished group portrait came from that improvised post-concert session. By the time this portrait was made, the Runaways had been reshaped as a 4-piece. Cherie Currie and Jackie Fox had left, so Joan Jett moved into lead vocals and Vicki Blue took over on bass. Jett, Lita Ford, Sandy West, and Blue then recorded Waitin' for the Night, the band's first album with Jett as its main singer. Jimi Hendrix arrived at Fillmore East with a new trio, Billy Cox on bass and Buddy Miles on drums. Their 4 New Year's concerts were the debut of Band of Gypsies, and every show was professionally recorded. In the opening set, Hendrix played 11 songs without using a single track he had previously released. The 1970 live album came from the 2 January 1st shows. In July 1984, Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band had a new shape. Stevie Van Zandt had left, and Nils Lofgren joined just before the Born in the USA tour began. The guitarist beside Bruce in this Richfield Coliseum photograph is Lofgren, sharing the stage with Clarence Clemens during his first tour as an E Street member. David Bowie filmed the pub scenes for Let's Dance in Corinda, a tiny town in New South Wales. The song sounded bright, but the video placed an Aboriginal couple inside the racism and economic pressure of white Australian society. The cheerful guitar performance in this frame was deliberately set against that much sharper visual story. This is Motorhead, before Phil Taylor and Fast Eddie Clarke completed the classic trio. In 1975, Lemmy formed the first lineup with guitarist Larry Wallace and drummer Lucas Fox, pictured here beside him. They recorded On Parole, but United Artists refused to release it. The album remained shelved until 1979, after another lineup had already broken through. On November 21, 1980, John Lennon and Yoko Ono stepped back into public view to promote Double Fantasy after 5 years of seclusion. Alan Tannenbaum photographed them walking through Central Park, posing outside the Dakota, and working in Yoko's office. Their matching caps and relaxed pose belonged to a full day of promotion, not a private snapshot caught by chance. At Woburn Music Festival on July 6, 1968, the Jimi Hendrix Experience performed while Axis, Bold as Love was still selling strongly. Rather than building the set around that album, Hendrix included alternatives such as his version of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It became the trio's last performance in England until 2 Royal Albert Hall concerts the following February. In September 1985, cameras filmed Queen building One Vision at Musicland Studios in Munich. All 4 members received the writing credit. Roger Taylor led the lyrics. Brian May supplied the central guitar work. John Deacon shaped the bass part, and Freddie Mercury added vocal improvisations. This microphone scene catches that group collaboration in progress. Exile on Main Street is remembered as the album made in the basement of Keith Richards' villa in France. But work continued at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, where Mick Jagger and Richards handled post-production in 1972. This quiet studio scene belongs to the album's final Los Angeles phase, not the famous basement sessions. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young were rehearsing for their 1970 summer tour when this photograph was taken. Recordings from that run later became Four-Way Street, but the quartet broke apart as soon as the tour ended in July. They would not come together again in earnest until their 1974 reunion tour. Queen intended to turn their 1974 Rainbow Theater concert into a live album. The show was recorded while Brian May and John Deacon waited backstage with their guitars. But the band's popularity accelerated so quickly that the project was shelved. The tapes remained in the archive until their first official release 40 years later.